some of the people you might have met and the speakers that you listened to, and turn that in, and we'll get that wrapped up. So I really appreciate your support. It was fun to see a number of you there, so thank you for going to that. Coming up tomorrow, we have 2 more networking events. So the Opportunity Quest competition starts at 3 o'clock in the Sorensen Center, room 206. I believe it's A. Is that right, Megan? And so in A, we're going to have 6 student business pitches that are going to talk about their business idea and how they're going to make it successful. The 3 of those will be winners. The first place will get $4,000, second place will get $2,000, and third place gets $1,000. So the odds are in their favor to be successful in that event. You're welcome to come. That would count as a networking event. And if you stay around long enough, then you're around 6 o'clock, 5:36 tied to that event. So look for us at 206 in the Sorensen Center. And then also, BYU does a Fusion Entrepreneurship Network at the New Skin building once a year. This will be probably 1,000 people, maybe, I suspect. Have you ever been to that, John? So it's kind of a wide open event. They have it at the New Skin building. You're welcome to go to that. It's from 6 to 8:30. That also would be a fabulous networking event to meet people in the entrepreneurship community, fellow students, mentors, teachers, investors, all kinds of people at that event. All right, any questions? Great, I love no questions. Is there one in the back, or you just go ahead?
Is there a cost for that?
No, it's free. Yeah. We love free events, so they're both free, and you're welcome to come. Okay, the next thing was, if I were a student and wanted to turn in a big idea, I would go to the UVU Entrepreneurship Institute website page, and I'd come down with a big idea, and I would fill in the blanks, and I would have my assignment done. So it's that easy. And next week, we're going to announce a couple of winners that won from the December entries. So you had some really good ideas from December. We'll announce those 2 winners that get $100 next week. And again, it just pays to go to class. I tell you, this is a great class. And now I wanted to introduce our speaker today. Jonathan Johnson was one of the highlights of the Silicon Slopes, and it was fascinating that this whole concept. Last year I don't think we had a single presentation on blockchain or on cryptocurrency, and this year the classes were packed; they were full. And Jonathan is emerging as one of the thought leaders and one of the experts when it comes to blockchain and cryptocurrency. But what I find fascinating about Jonathan is he started off in the legal profession. So he got his law degree from the J. Reuben Clark Law School at BYU. He then was a clerk for the Utah Supreme Court. How long was he for 1 year? And then got involved with some tech companies. I think was it 10 something? Tenfold. Did they sell that? Is that?
Never join a company with Fold in its name.
You might as well stand up. You're part of it.
Yeah, I would say never join a company that has Fold in its name because it doesn't work out well.
Fold is not a good omen.
No, it's not.
Especially tenfold.
It was good.
And then after that, you were brought into Overstock.com, and that was around the 2002, right at the very beginning of that whole process.
Yeah.
And he's going to tell you a little bit about that. And then recently, you started your own investment. Is it Medici? How do you?
Medici.
It's close.
You can say it all those ways, and I probably say it, I butcher it for the Italians. But Medici Ventures is a blockchain-focused fund within Overstock.
Right. So I was going to ask you, of all the jobs you had when you were in school or high school, what was the worst job that you remember?
Well, I was a janitor I grew up in Los Angeles, and I was a janitor for a photographer. I would go into his big studio and sweep the place up and clean it up, and he had cats, and I was allergic to cats. That was a horrible job, but then it turned in over the summer. I got to be the guy who worked for him and carried the lighting around, and he would take photographs for the covers of People and Us magazine.
Wow. And
so in 1984, when I was doing this, there was a movie that came out with Tanya Roberts. Last name Roberts. Anyway, she was one of the later Charlie's Angels, and she was a Bond girl, and she had this movie that came out, Sheena, Lord of the Jungle. And so we were taking a picture of her in this little leatherette bikini to go on the cover of that. And so I got a picture with her, with my big grinning face. That adorned my dorm room wall until I met my wife, and now it's lost somehow.
Yeah, the kids will bring that out when they need it. Anyway, so we are thrilled to have Jonathan here. One other side note is he ran for governor. He was in the Republican Party. He ran against Governor Herbert a couple of years ago. That in itself is a phenomenal task, and so he's got a tremendous amount of experience. We are grateful to have Jonathan here. So let's hear it for Jonathan Johnson.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone. I've come down and guest lectured at UVU, I don't know, for every year for at least a decade. And every year I come down, I'm more and more impressed with what's going on this campus. It's certainly getting bigger and newer, but more importantly, I'm more impressed with the student body. And so, impress me today. Ask questions as I'm going through. If you want to interrupt, please do. One thing I learned when I was a candidate running for governor was that if I was giving a speech, I knew there was one person in the room who cared about what I was saying. But if I was answering a question, then I knew there were at least two of us that cared about the same. So feel free to interrupt and ask questions. And I do see some students here who are big volunteers and influential on the campaign for them. I'm always indebted and appreciative. I've broken my slides up into really two different sets because, as you'll notice, I've got two titles. I'm on the board of directors at Overstock.com, and I've been with the company for 16 Christmases. When you're in the retail business, you can count your life in Christmases. So I've been with them for 16 Christmases, and I'll kind of talk about some of the growth from the small startup that had 50 people when I joined, and the things that helped us, I think, grow to be a $2 billion business that employs over 2,000 Utahns. And then I totally switched gears, and I'll talk about Medici Ventures, which I'm the president of. And that's a wholly owned subsidiary of Overstock that is focused on blockchain technology, cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And that is, I think, something that's going to be bigger than the internet, and is going to be we could grow that piece of the business to be bigger than Overstock itself. So we've got two places, and it kind of shifts dramatically, but that's where we are. So, principles of innovation at Overstock. And this is our new campus that we've built in Midvale. It's in the shape of an O. Everything at Overstock has to do with the O. And so this building's in the shape of an O, and we call it Peace Coliseum, because when you look at it from the outside, it kind of looks like a Coliseum, big cement building with punched glass, as if you're going into a vomitorium. But as you fly over it, if you're coming into the airport from the south, you'll notice that there's a circular nucleus building in the middle of it, and there's 4 pathways that go from the outer building to the inner building that form a 60s style peace sign. So, Peace Coliseum. We're one love inside the building, but outside it's strict business competition. So, anyway, good businesses succeed when they solve problems. So if you're in a business or you're thinking about creating a business, you have to think about what problem are you trying to solve. And back in 1999, when Overstock started, e-commerce was barely a thing. And the problem that we were working to solve, and there's our first logo and our first website, not very 2018, pre-1999 in fact. The problem we were trying to solve was liquidation. Everything that's manufactured, usually about at least 5% of it, turns out to be liquidation goods. It's not sold, and so manufacturers and retailers are stuck with last year's goods. And they need a discrete way to get rid of them, to sell them. You don't want last year's toaster sitting next to this year's toaster on the shelf if the only two differences between last year's toaster and this year's toaster are the color of the knob you push to get the bread to go down and the price. If last year's is 75% less than this year's, and different color knob, I think most of us in this room are gonna take last year's and not this year's. And so retailers and manufacturers try to avoid that problem, something they call channel pollution. They don't wanna pollute this year's channel with last year's stuff by liquidating. And historically, the way that companies have liquidated was they sold it to a guy named Vinny, who knew a guy who knew a guy, and he had it on the back of his truck, and that's how you could get good deals. Or they moved it to the outlets, which would be, 40 miles from a city center. That's why people drive up to Park City or to Lehigh and go to the outlets, because it doesn't compete with the major malls. We said this is a great place for the internet. We can be the outlet mall, the flea market, the guy named Vinny on the internet. And people are always looking for a good deal, and retailers and manufacturers are looking for a way to get rid of their stuff without this channel pollution. So that's what we did. And frankly, in the early days of the internet, the companies that did really well were bringing together disaggregated supply and demand. I talked to someone, Andy? Al, who used to be at eBay. eBay, if you ever go to their corporate headquarters campus in Northern California, their lobby is kind of a museum to the products that they started out with, where they were putting together disaggregated supply and demand. Somewhere, someone had Pez candy dispensers that they wanted to get rid of. Somewhere, someone wanted those. Or Beanie Baby plush toys, or Grandpa's duck decoys. That's what eBay did. Frankly, that's what dating sites do today. There's disaggregated supply and demand. Right? There's those of us on this side of the room that are looking at our shoes, and then there are those of us on the other side of the room that are looking at our shoes, and dating sites bring us together. That's what we did, and it was a huge market, and that's how Overstock began. And in 1999, we started liquidation, consolidation. We had 18 employees, and we did $1.8 million in revenue. Every time we sold a watch, a bell went off, and everyone would clap, and it was a big deal. Today, we continue to solve problems. This is pictures from our current website. It's much different. We no longer are just a liquidator. We're a general retailer. We're no longer in the business of selling anything and everything. Almost 70 to 80% of what we sell is stuff for the home. You look at this picture up here, everything goes to a home. That's what we're focused on today, and we've morphed over time. We no longer hold all of our inventory. When we were liquidators, we'd buy it from a manufacturer or retailer, put it in our warehouse. When you came and bought it, we'd pick, pack, and ship it and send it to you. That meant part of our growth strategy was, one of the limiters was how much money we had to buy product and how much warehouse space we had to buy product. Today, 95% of what we sell, we don't own and we don't warehouse. We're a bunch of drop ship fulfillment suppliers that own and ship for us. Now we do the marketing, we process the credit card, we take the customer care, but we don't own the inventory. And so it's allowed us today to morph into a company where our motto is Dream Homes for All. It's a little outdated. We've got over 2,000 employees and close to $2 billion in sales. So continuing to figure out what problems to solve has helped us get a business started and continue to grow in different ways. So my advice, first piece of advice for entrepreneurs is figure out what problem you're trying to solve. And if you got a problem that people will pay you to solve, then you got a business. Next thing, anytime you get an organization with 2 or more people, you start having bureaucracy and inertia. And good entrepreneurs and good business people find ways to break through inertia and break through bureaucracy. I want to tell 2 things that we always do. Any project that people are working on, we assign a captain. And that captain is in charge of reporting on that project each week, each month, whatever period that person is reporting on. And when someone comes to our executive meeting that's captaining a project, they are allowed to report on the project one of 2 ways. First way is the project is complete. That's a great answer. And that's the answer we want our captain to give. And we will allow her to do anything she can to say that. The other way we allow people to begin their report on the status of a project is, I have failed. Think about that. No one likes to say, I have failed. Right? It's a hard thing to say. And the reason that we put that in place is not because we want to make people admit they failed. And when they fail, they don't get fired. We say, okay, well, what can I do to help you succeed? Well, we put it in place because before that, people who were captains would say, well, you know what, it's not done because the contract's stuck in legal. Or I'm waiting for the IT guys to do something. Or marketing's got to fix it. Or the guys at the warehouse were having problems with logistics. When people are pointing this way, that's not useful. And so we said we're assigning the captain to create accountability. Now, if someone responds, I have failed, my next question to them is, okay, what do we need to do to help you succeed? And if they say, well, the problem's contract's stuck in legal, I say, okay, I'll go talk to legal, see if we can't unstick it. But what I've learned is that good managers, particularly type A, grab the brass ring type managers, never want to say, I have failed. And so they run through walls to try and figure out how they can come to the meeting and say, the project is complete. It's a great, great way to break through bureaucracy. Another way that we use to break through inertia and bureaucracy is with internal competitions. And I'll tell a story from early in Overstock's history. We were a relatively small IT organization, about 100 people. And they all reported up through the CTO. And when you're in an internet company, it feels like any and everything we want to do requires IT to touch it. I sometimes joke that I felt like I couldn't go to the men's room without a development team and a project manager to help me work everything out. But it was just, always had to have IT teams. And IT was kind of a unit unto themselves. You know, a business person would come and they'd pray to the IT gods, oh, I hope you can get this done for us, and throw an assignment over the wall, and maybe it got done, maybe it didn't. And IT would say, well, I can't do that because it's going to cost too much, or I can do it, but only if we push these other things to the side. And it became a real bottleneck, a real source of bureaucracy. So we said, we're going to do something else. We got to figure out how to fix this. So we went to our CTO, and we said, you got 100 people. Who are your bottom 20 performers? Who's the JV team? And he gave us a list, and we said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create, over here in this other part of the building, we're going to create something called O Labs. Remember, everything at Overstock's got out of O. And we took these 20 developers who really weren't the JV team, they were just frustrated in the current system. We said, you're part of O Labs. And we told our business units, you have a choice. When you have a project you want done, you can go to IT, or you can come to O Labs. Now, you know, IT's the varsity team, and O Labs is the JV team. You decide what you want to do. Anyone besides me ever play on a JV sports team? When I was on the JV team, the best days of practice were the days we beat the varsity. That happened every once in a while. That was awesome. Well, it turns out OLAB had the same attitude. Their best days at work were the days they beat the IT team. And pretty soon, business people got wind of, if you take something to OLABs, they don't say no, they say yes. And they get it done. And pretty soon there's a longer line of projects in front of OLABs than there are in front of IT. And there are guys that are working on the varsity team and now want to come play for the JV team. They got all the cool projects and they get stuff done and people pat them on the back and they get bonuses. You create internal competition and then all of a sudden all this inertia that lived over here got broke through. Over time, we can combine it back together and change the culture. So if you want to be successful in building a business, try and break through bureaucracy and try and break through inertia. It's really important. Lastly, and then we'll kind of finish the Overstock piece. It's really important to be agile. Here are software developers or thinking about being software developers. I'm glad we got some hands up there. Basically, there are two types of theories in software development. There's one called waterfall, where you get a project, you work and you work and you work, and you get all the requirements up front, you work and you work, and you just deliver something that's done. That might take 6 weeks, it might take 6 months, it might take 6 years. And the people on the business side are kind of wondering what's going on, it's working okay. And frankly, in that 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years, the market has changed, the requirements will be different. The waterfall is pretty tough. On the other hand, there's a form of software development called Agile, which is you do quick 2 to 4 week sprints, and you just develop the best you can, you deliver to the business people, they pound on it, they say, oh, it works or it doesn't work. You just do things more quickly. And I'm a big believer, not just in software development, but in trying new things in business, to try things quickly. And when they work, keep pouring money at it. And when they're dogs, failure fast. It's really, really important. Sometimes you go, oh, but we put so much money into it. I know if we just spend a little bit more time and a little bit more money, it'll be great. Maybe. But my experience is, most of the time, it's not. And Overstock has had a long, long list of failures. We created an option to compete with eBay. Didn't work so well. We failed there. Maybe a little slower than we should have, but ultimately we turned it off. We were in the vacation rental home business. Didn't work so well. We sold that business. But I love testing things and trying them, because the ones that work generally work pretty quickly. You can take a sense that they're good and you can move on and power through. Question. Tell me your name.
Mike Pratt.
Thanks, Mike.
Just curious about when you're going through different iterations of limited resources, how do you try a lot when you don't have as much resources or as deep pockets to try?
Well,
Repeat the question.
the question is, if you want to try a bunch of things and you're iterating this way, how do you determine if you have enough resources to try as much? You can't try everything. Everyone's going to have great ideas. One of the things that we do is we have an intranet inside, and we really look to our employees to vote ideas up or down. And any employee can suggest any idea. They get voted up and down by the employees. The management team looks at them once a month, and we move forward. I love the wisdom of the crowds more than I love, if I go back to this slide, you know who this guy is. He's Dilbert's pointy-haired boss who sits up in the C-suite and has all the right answers that are all wrong. That's why Scott Adams has got a good cartoon, right? Because I know I don't have the best ideas. And when I sit in my grand office and think grand thoughts, they're usually duds. But when I'm out meeting with, taking phone calls in customer care, it's brutal. I get a sense of what the customers care. When I walk the warehouse and see how the processes work, people in the warehouse can tell me how this should get fixed. When I go to New York and deal with the buyers and the things they're buying, I get a sense of what our business is like. To prioritize, I think you have to have the wisdom of the crowd, or at least the people on the front line to help you do it. So, Overstock has succeeded when we've solved problems and we've broke through inertia and bureaucracy, and when we've worked agilely. Those are 3 principles that I think are really important to building a business. So I'm going to pause there. That's kind of the Overstock portion of this presentation. I'd love to answer any questions before we start talking about what I think is the next big thing, blockchain. Tell me your name.
What are you guys currently?
Tell me your name.
My name's Ammon.
Ammon, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Got your Philly,
yeah, it's a good
Philly
day
hat
to be
on.
an Eagle, that's for sure.
I hope it's a good day in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so too. But my question is, what are you guys doing, or what have you done to prevent or work with competitors such as Amazon or Wayfair, who, especially Wayfair, who does a lot of what Overstock does now?
Yeah. So competition's always going to be there, and there is some very worthy competition in the retail business. Amazon, I think in retail there's Amazon, and there's everybody else. And I don't just mean online retail, I just mean retail. In online home goods, you're right, Wayfair is a significant force, and they've grown to be bigger than us. They've lost money every single year. Lost, I think it was $200 million last year, you know, and sometimes investors let you do that. We have tried to grow and be profitable and run a business that we think can be around, but you've got to adjust. And when people's marketing campaigns adjust, I mean, it is a constant chess match. And it's why I think agile philosophies are good, because you can't just say, this is who we are, this is what we do, because if that's, the market's gonna pass you up and move on. Someone had a hand up, tell me your name.
Yes, I actually work for Wayfair.com.
Tell me your name.
Oh, sorry, my name's Blake.
Blake,
And I actually work for Wayfair.com.
Good for you.
Right now, and what are some things that you consider that we're losing money in the last few years?
why do I consider you're losing money?
Just wondering, just because that's
Well,
not what I've been told.
Well, I just look at the bottom line on the financial statements that they file with the SEC every quarter. You know, I think the revenues are growing significantly. When I look at the bottom line, it just is. So, tell me your name.
Aubrey. My name's Aubrey. I'm wondering what your definition of inertia is.
Inertia is, I think, fear of change, fear of doing things new, and it's always comfortable to kind of keep moving forward in the rut that you're in and not try new things. And I will tell you, when you get in a big organization to do something new, there are always going to be people that say, oh, no, that's not how we do it. Or if we do that, we're going to fail. Well, maybe it's not how we do it. Maybe we should try. Maybe we'll fail, but let's try and do something different. So people are comfortable doing what they do every day. You know, and there's the old story about the newly married wife who's going to cook ham on Sunday for the first time, and she calls her mom and she said, you know, remind me of the recipe. And her mom says, well, we cut the ends off of the ham. And she goes, why do we do that? And he said, I don't know, let me call grandma. And they call grandma and say, yeah, we always just cut the ends off of the ham. Why do we do that? I don't know, it's called great grandma. And she said, well, we cut the ends off of the ham because we used to have a real small oven, and that's how the only ham we could fit in. You know, and so for generations, we cut both ends off the ham so we can, because it's how grandma did it, you know? And that's inertia. That's an example. So tell me that.
Roy,
Roy, nice to meet you.
meeting. So you say create a competition within the company. How do you keep that competition from getting too negatively or wavering negatively, or have any like intense competition?
I don't worry about that too much. I mean, I think that's why you have umpires, that's management. If things are, someone's going to be dastardly sabotaged, you certainly want to stop that. But I think competition is good. You know, I'm a big believer in the free market of ideas, free market economy, free market within a company. You know, if people are going to break the rules, I'm the ump. We should do that. But I think competing is a good thing. Tell me.
Just kind of to expand on
Tell me your name.
Megan.
Megan, thanks.
What you just said, I was gonna kind of ask about that because when I was at Tech Summit and then some of the contents of the classes I'm taking, it's been said that having competition within, like, between work departments and things like that can sometimes create friction that may not contribute to your overall goal as a company. And so when you have competition between other companies, do you think that hinders it, or?
It can. And look, I'm a big believer in collaboration too. You come to our new workspace, it's all open. You know, very few people have offices. We're doing everything we can to encourage collaboration. But I think sometimes when you hit a brick wall and all the collaboration isn't working to move you where you need to be, then try something else. And so I'm not saying you want to have a cutthroat work environment. I like a collaborative work environment. But I think there are times when competition is good. I'm going to move on. We can take more questions at the end. Let's talk about blockchain and Bitcoin. So 4 years ago this month, Overstock became the first big company, billion-dollar company, to start accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment. And that first few weeks, our average cryptocurrency, our Bitcoin revenue was about $250,000 a week. It's because there's a lot of Bitcoin enthusiasts who were just thrilled to support the new kid on the block. It then tailed down, and for several years, 2 or 3 years, it was about $30,000 a week of cryptocurrency-related revenue. Last year, we started accepting 50 different altcoins or cryptocurrencies. And I will tell you, over the last year, particularly as the value of cryptocurrency went up, so did our weekly revenue, from 30,000 to 50,000 to 100,000 to over, one week we had $400,000 of cryptocurrency revenue in a week. It's about $250,000 a week right now, which is not a lot when you're doing $2 billion in business, but it's something. I'm a big believer in cryptocurrencies. I think there are a lot of phony ones out there and flim-flam ones out there, but I like the concept. I like the concept of freedom. I like the concept of something acting outside of government. But more than cryptocurrencies, I like the underlying technology. Bitcoin and most of these cryptocurrencies are built on technology called blockchain. And I think Bitcoin is the first killer app on blockchain, just like email was the first killer app on the internet. And so blockchain is certainly more than Bitcoin. When I was a freshman in college, 1984, and got an email on CompuServe, I thought that was the internet. And you know what? It kind of was. But the internet is so much more. And Bitcoin is the first killer app, but blockchain is so much more. What blockchain will do is, well, let me back up. The internet has disrupted information flow back and forth. And the publishing industry was really disrupted. And so today, information flows on the internet almost freely and frictionlessly. But information that flows is almost always a copy. I send you an email or a website or a Word document, I'm sending you a copy. And you don't care that you've got a copy, and I don't care that I've given you a copy. But with assets, I'm going to use that term in quotes, with assets, you don't want a copy. If I give you a Bitcoin or a $20 bill, you don't want a copy. You want the real McCoy. Otherwise, we've just created more of the same thing. If I give you my vote in an election, you don't want a copy so that I can vote it 10 or 15 or 20 times. You want the one asset transfer of my vote. That's what blockchain technology does. It lets us transfer assets through technology. So the way things work today, when we're transferring assets, is we've got a bunch of trust brokers in between you and me. If we're buying stocks and bonds, you go to your broker, who goes to a prime broker, I go to my broker, who goes to his prime broker. We get a deal, and it trades and settles, and a clearing corporation. There's all these trust institutions in between. Even money, we have trust institutions in between. I give you a green and white piece of paper for buying lunch for me, and you say, oh, that's good, it's worth something because it was printed by the U.S. Mint. You got a trust institution in between. If I want to Venmo you money because we've had lunch together, I have to have a bank account, you have to have a bank account, we both have to have a Venmo account. Trust institutions in between. And that's fine, but what is the cost of trust institutions? They're rent-seeking. They had time, they had cost, they had risk of fraud, and frankly, sometimes they had purposeful fraud. And today we deal with these trust institutions, and it works, but blockchain lets us do trust through technology, where we can have an electronic handshake, and it's like when we were kids, and I'd spit in my hand and you'd spit in your hand, and we'd shake, and we had a deal because we knew each other, and the deal was good. That's what blockchain technology does. It's as if all of us have a ledger that shows the truth, and when I update the ledger and say, take $20 off of my ledger and put it on to Mark's, all of our ledgers are immediately updated, and every 10 minutes, if it's the Bitcoin blockchain, that new ledger is validated, creates a new block that's attached to the last block of truth, It's attached to the previous block of truth in this ongoing chain back to the beginning. That's block chain. And electronically, I've transferred a Bitcoin or a $20 bill or whatever it is on a ledger without trust institutions because there's this technology. So, Medici, big believer in blockchain technology. And we're investing in companies to try and do three things. They're trying to do one or all of three things. First, democratize capital. Today, if you want to raise money for your new business, you go to a venture capital firm and you raise money. And if you get that, good for you and good on you. But who gets to invest in a venture capital firm? Not very many of us. It's an elite few that get to do this. If we can use blockchain technology for better crowdfunding, we're democratizing capital. If we can create a system where those that don't have bank accounts don't need bank accounts to digitally transact with each other, we've democratized capital. And in different parts of the world, as much as 40% in the Caribbean, 70% in South America, 90% in Africa, they don't have bank accounts. And it's not because they don't have jobs, paychecks, or homes, or utility bills. It's because the banking laws have become such that they can't participate. We're looking for a way to eliminate middlemen. I'm a big believer that you want to eliminate as many middlemen as possible. That's what Overstock did at the beginning. Instead of a manufacturer selling to a guy named Vinny, who knew a guy, who knew a guy, who knew a guy, in other words, middlemen who middlemen who middlemen, we stepped in the middle and disintermediated. That's what blockchain technology can do. But most importantly, we want to rehumanize commerce. Sounds like an old police song. But we want to rehumanize ourselves, where when we have a digital handshake, we don't have a bunch of brokers in between us that say, hey, you and I can transact. We have technology. We want to do that. And so we're focused on these 6 areas: identity, voting, capital markets. And we've invested in 12 different companies. I want to just talk about maybe 2 of them. So this past summer, the congressman who represents this area, Jason Chaffetz, resigned earlier last year. And in the summer, we had a vote in the primary. I want to talk about all the trust institutions that were involved in that vote, because we've invested in a company called Votes that we think can eliminate those trust institutions. In Utah, we have closed primaries, which means only Republicans can vote in Republican primaries. Only Democrats can vote in Democratic primaries. Well, in the Republican primary in the summer, the county clerks, trust institution number 1, went through their rolls, and they were supposed to send Republican ballots to Republican voters. And in Utah County and in Wasatch County, 2 of the biggest counties in Congressional District 3, they sent Republican ballots to Republicans and unaffiliated voters. Trust institution failed. How did they send those ballots? Via the U.S. Postal Service. I'm just going to say trust institution failed. Maybe you got yours, maybe you didn't. But you got it, you filled it out. I filled mine out. I happen to be in the same district up at the northern end of it in Salt Lake. Filled it out, put it in a confidentiality sleeve, stuck that sleeve in an envelope, signed the envelope, and sent it in. Again, U.S. Postal Service. I hope it got to the county clerk. But if I didn't sign my ballot the same way I signed my voter registration, maybe I don't know if I put my middle initial on it, or my Roman numeral, or if I've been remarried, or we got married and changed the name. You don't know. You don't know. You can look it up on the website, but you don't know to do that. Again, trust institution failed. These ballots get to the county clerk. They take them out of the envelope. Our state auditor did an audit of this, and he said most of those confidentiality sleeves were see-through. Your secret vote wasn't so secret. Trust institution failed. Then it goes through some Scantrons type machine that you hope works, and your vote is counted as cast. Or so you hope, so you trust. I've been voting since 1984. Never once have I known with surety that my vote was counted as cast. Think about blockchain technology. Votes has an application where I can go to my phone, biometrically prove who I am. A thumbprint or an iris scan or something. The county clerk can say, oh, this is Jonathan Johnson. He lives in Holiday, Utah. He gets to vote in these city races, these county races, this congressional race. He can send me my ballot electronically. I can fill it out. It's cryptographically secure, and it goes back to the county clerk anonymously. It's as if I put one blue marble in a big jar of blue marbles. They're all shooken up, and the whole jar of votes gets given to the county clerk. She counts them, turns them in, but I, because I know that I have the key to my vote, can confirm that my vote was counted as cast. I think that's awesome. I think it increases trust in our system, as I transfer my asset, my vote. I think it increases voter participation. How many of you would be more inclined to vote if you could do it on your phone rather than do it by mail or go stand in a long line? Everyone should be putting both hands up and say, me! You know, that's what I would do. I think it's awesome. That's blockchain technology. Let me talk about BIT. BIT's a company in the Caribbean where 40% of the population is on bank. What do most of us use a bank account for regularly? I use it for two purposes. One, I use it to store my money. So that when Overstock or Medici gives me a paycheck, it just gets a lot transferred, stored. I'm not carrying a big wad of cash to my sock drawer and keeping armed guard at my house to make sure people don't steal. It's a place to store money. The other reason I use a bank is to have access to digital currency. So that when my wife Courtney and I go on a date on Saturday to Costco to do our grocery shopping, I don't have to take a gangster wad of cash to pay for everything I'm buying that I didn't know I needed before I walked in. I can use electronic cash in the form of a debit or a credit card. If you're unbanked, you don't participate in the 21st century economy. How do you pay your electrical bill? You take time off work and go to the electrical company. You can't just send a check in or electronic transfer. But if you have a digital wallet that holds either digital fiat currency, and there my politics are showing, my calling money fiat currency, but or holds cryptocurrency, you now have a place to store money without a bank. And if places like Overstock and others will take digital currency, you can participate in the economy. That's what we're doing at BIT. They're working with central banks in the Caribbean to get them to issue a portion of their fiat current digitally, send out their Social Security type benefits, their Medicare type benefits digitally, and do it on a BIT wallet. That's awesome. That democratizes capital, and blockchain technology lets them do that. Ripio, over here on the side, doing the same thing in Argentina. Our 32-year-old CEO of Ripio down in Argentina, 3 times in his lifetime, has seen the value of Argentinian fiat currency go to 0. What do you do when you get paid and the value of your currency is going to 0? You go buy as much bread as you can the day you got paid. But the bread's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 times more expensive tomorrow or next week. But if you can hold that in cryptocurrency, which is stable because it's not getting devalued by the printing press, then you've got a place to store your money. So we love blockchain technology, and I can tell a different story, equally as compelling, every single one of these. Last thing. Blockchain technology, I think, is here to stay, and I think its acceptance is going to be fast. Here's the increasing rate of technology adoption. Before 25% of the population of the U.S. was using it. It took almost 50 years for the light bulb. It's taken 5 years for smartphones. I think it's going to take that S curve just gets steeper and steeper on adoption. This fellow here in the corner, Astro Teller, is the CEO of Google X, which is their skunkworks. His title's not really CEO, he calls himself Captain of Moonshots. Anyone there gets that title, you have arrived. Here's what he says about adapting to technological change. Technology and the rate of change is getting faster and faster and faster over time. This is what that last chart showed. Blockchain is on that accelerated curve. And then he says, where is human, how would we graph human adaptability? And he graphs it like this. I think he's generous to have any uptick at the end, frankly. And he says, today we're here. What kind of things pull down human adaptability? What kind of things pull up human adaptability? Because if you can figure that out, you'll do things that don't pull yours down and do pull it up. And I'm not talking about ability to type with your thumbs instead of your fingers as we've gone from keyboards to phones. I'm talking about regulation. I'm talking about incumbents working to stop things. I'm talking about not learning about new technology quick enough. Tell me your name.
My name's Chase.
Nice to meet you, Chase.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for coming. I have a few questions. You can take as long as you want. One, as you're looking at different cryptocurrencies, what's your standard to qualify like this is legit and this is valid and this is skyrocketing? My brother-in-law showed me like this website called Crypterium where it seemed like there's 1,000 different chains coming up where it's like 0.00 to 1%. Like a lot of it, because I don't know what I'm doing, looks like people are playing lottery with that, just kind of spitting money, hoping one will take off. Two, so since you're kind of anti institution, do you direct investing in maybe some institutions that specialize in blockchain, like I'm sure MGGI or Riot that do blockchain? And then my last one is in the early days, and like I believe it was the 1900s in like my church history, like there was a lot of different banks coming out with their own form of currency, and there was a huge crash. So how is this different from that?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, I'll answer all three quickly.
Okay.
There are a lot of different cryptocurrencies. There's over 1,000. There's thousands of tokens. I think most of them are fun. I think you have to look at them and say, what's the math? What's the technology behind it? Overstock accepts just 50. We've made that decision based on what a company called Shapeshift, which allows you to trade cryptocurrency for cryptocurrency without going into fiat, which ones they use. So we have someone else validating the ones that we
So
use.
Shapeshift is like your form that you use to trade.
Yes. And by the way, people, it won't hurt my feelings when the bell rings.
Yeah, let me just, if I, and you're welcome to stick around and ask them some questions. We do have a tight lunch. I think we have about 6 spots for lunch that
Okay.
will join us. The magic word is crypto. Let's go with that. That wasn't her wife. Yeah, we did. Thank you, everybody. Let's hear it from Jonathan. We really appreciate it.
I'm going to finish answering the question. We're more enthused about the blockchain technology than cryptocurrency itself.
I can do it up front.
Yeah.